The galaxy had always watched Earth from a distance, their leaders sitting comfortably in shining halls across distant stars, believing that the small blue planet was harmless, a place of simple creatures who fought among themselves and barely touched the edges of space. Reports from their scouts painted humans as disorganized, emotional, and technologically backward. The idea that Earth could defend itself against even a minor galactic force was laughed out of every council meeting. So when the Grand Alliance decided to expand its reach and take Earth's rich resources, no one argued. It would be easy, they said. Earth had no real fleets, no strong defenses, and no allies to call upon. The humans would either surrender quickly or be swept aside without resistance. Plans were drawn, fleets were prepared, and mighty battleships filled with soldiers, weapons, and confidence moved through space, ready to bring Earth to its knees. There were no doubts, no second thoughts. After all, how could a young species that barely traveled beyond its own solar system ever stand against the grand powers of the galaxy? As the invasion fleet approached the outer edge of the solar system, their commanders issued casual orders. No need for full battle readiness. They cruised towards Earth at a leisurely pace, their sleek ships cutting through the darkness like predators sure of their prey. On Earth, life went on as usual, or so it seemed to the invaders. Cities sparkled with lights, satellites circled in predictable orbits, and human broadcasts filled the space around the planet with harmless noise. The Grand Alliance commanders smiled to themselves, already imagining the victory celebrations that would follow. But they didn't know the truth. Beneath Earth's calm surface, something ancient and powerful was hidden, forgotten even by most humans themselves. Old war machines, locked away during an era of fear and chaos, slept beneath oceans, mountains, and deserts, waiting for a signal that had not been sent for centuries. Humanity, it turned out, had not always been so weak. Long ago, in a time before the Great Wars tore Earth's nations apart, humankind had reached for the stars with dreams of exploration and glory. But they had also feared the dangers that lurked in the universe, dangers they were not yet ready to face. So the greatest minds of Earth built the dreadnoughts, massive, nearly indestructible warships, equipped with weapons that could shatter moons and shields that could withstand the fury of suns. These ships were hidden away, locked beneath layers of rock and metal, programmed to remain silent unless humanity itself faced extinction. Over time, the dreadnoughts became myths, their existence buried under generations of peace, chaos, and rebuilding. Humanity forgot, but the machines did not. The first warning came when a strange shimmer was detected at the edge of Earth's atmosphere. Scientists and military commanders rushed to their instruments, faces turning pale as alien fleets appeared on their screens. But before panic could spread among Earth's people, ancient systems buried deep within the planet stirred. Codes older than any living memory activated. Hidden bunkers trembled as enormous hangar doors, sealed shut for hundreds of years, slowly groaned open. Waters boiled above secret ocean bases as enormous hulls began to rise, armored in dark metals that drank the light. In the depths of long-forgotten caves, engines the size of skyscrapers roared back to life. Earth's leaders, initially panicked, now watched with a mix of awe and terror as massive shadows lifted into the sky, silent and terrible. When the Grand Alliance fleet finally arrived in orbit and sent their first demand for Earth's surrender, they were met with silence. Confused, the alien commanders repeated the message, growing more aggressive with their words. Still, no answer came. Instead, sensors began picking up strange signals, deep vibrations pulsing through space like the footsteps of giants. And then, without warning, Earth's dreadnoughts emerged. They rose from the atmosphere like ancient gods, their surfaces covered in strange markings and glowing lines of energy. Their sheer size dwarfed the alien ships, their weapons bristling along their sides like the spines of some monstrous beast. For a few seconds, there was only stunned silence. The aliens, so sure of their victory, stared at their screens in disbelief. This was not what they had expected. Before they could regroup or send a new message, the dreadnoughts fired. Beams of searing energy cut through space, smashing into the lead alien ships and ripping them apart like paper. Missiles the size of small buildings launched from hidden bays, tracking their targets with terrifying precision. Alien shields, thought to be impenetrable, cracked and failed under the assault. Within minutes, what had been a proud invasion fleet was reduced to debris and scattered survivors, fleeing desperately back into the darkness. On Earth, the skies lit up with the distant flashes of battle, but no enemy fire reached the surface. The dreadnoughts formed an impenetrable wall around the planet, their silent threat more terrifying than any words could ever be. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. The Grand Alliance's fleet, once considered unstoppable, had been destroyed by a species they had mocked. Fear replaced arrogance in the hearts of alien leaders. If Earth had kept such weapons hidden for so long, what else were they capable of? Whispers filled the halls of galactic power, tales of human resilience, hidden strength, and the terrible machines that waited patiently beneath their feet. Back on Earth, the people watched in awe as their old protectors moved into formation. Though most did not understand where these giants had come from, a deep instinctive feeling filled them, the sense that they were no longer vulnerable, no longer alone. Humanity had been underestimated, laughed at, and ignored for too long. Now, the galaxy would remember that beneath the surface of Earth's calm oceans and green forests, a storm had been waiting, ready to rise when the time came. And that time had finally arrived. Deep under the vast oceans, inside the hollow mountains, and hidden beneath endless layers of rock and steel, ancient machines started to stir. For centuries, they had slept in the silence of forgotten places, their powerful engines cold, their massive guns covered in dust and darkness. Humanity had moved on, growing, fighting, rebuilding, and dreaming, while these silent guardians remained still, waiting for a moment that many believed would never come. But now, with the alien invasion fleet hovering over Earth, the signal had been given, and the old war code had been triggered. In command centers buried deep underground, ancient terminals blinked to life, flooding dark halls with eerie green light. Robotic arms, stiff from centuries of inactivity, clanked into motion, checking, repairing, and fueling the giants they were sworn to maintain. The dreadnoughts, massive ships built in an age of fear and hope, had not been abandoned. They had simply been waiting for the right time to rise again. Above, the oceans bubbled and frothed as gigantic shapes pushed toward the surface, breaking through with thunderous force, sending massive waves crashing against distant shores. Mountains trembled as hidden launch bays opened like yawning mouths, releasing the sleeping giants into the sky. The people of Earth watched in stunned silence, standing on rooftops, beaches, and city streets, staring upwards as the sky filled with the impossible. These ships were unlike anything modern humanity had ever seen. They were not sleek and polished like the new exploration crafts. They were rugged, dark, and monstrous, designed for a single purpose: survival at all costs. Towering above the tallest skyscrapers, their armored hulls were covered with deep scars from battles long forgotten, their weapons bristling like the quills of a deadly beast. Engines the size of cities roared to life, shaking the air and rattling windows across continents. Yet despite their terrifying appearance, the dreadnoughts moved with a strange, deliberate grace, as if remembering old paths across the stars. Each one carried the firepower to destroy entire fleets, and together, they represented the last and greatest hope of Earth. The alien fleet, hovering confidently above the planet, received their first warnings when their long-range sensors began picking up strange energy surges from the surface. At first, they ignored them, believing them to be the desperate thrashings of a dying civilization. But as the signals grew stronger and clearer, unease began to spread among the alien commanders. Strange vibrations rattled their ships, low pulses that felt almost like the growls of some ancient predator awakening from slumber. Panic spread quickly when the first human dreadnoughts broke through the clouds, rising to meet them, black against the stars, terrible in their silence. The aliens scrambled to form battle lines, but it was already too late. Earth's silent giants were not only awake, they were ready for war. Without a single word, without a single threat, the first blast of their weapons tore a path through the alien fleet, slicing through shields and armor as if they were made of paper. Alien pilots screamed orders into their radios, trying to regroup, trying to fight back, but nothing they did could slow the advance of the human ships. Every shot from the dreadnoughts was precise, deadly, and unstoppable. Where alien ships had once floated proudly in Earth's orbit, now there was only fire, wreckage, and silence. In the cities below, humanity watched the battle unfold, a mixture of fear and awe filling every heart. They had always believed they were alone, vulnerable, and weak compared to the vast civilizations of the stars. But now they saw the truth. Long ago, their ancestors had prepared for this moment, building a force so powerful that even the oldest and strongest empires would tremble before it. The battle raged. Earth's leaders gathered in secret chambers, struggling to understand the miracle happening above them. Old records, hidden deep within government archives, were rushed out and studied by wide-eyed officials. Files marked for the end times only were opened for the first time in generations. They learned about Project Last Light, a desperate effort by ancient nations to build the ultimate defense against unknown threats. No one had believed the project would ever be needed. No one had thought humanity would fall so far that they would forget their own strength. Yet here they were, their forgotten guardians saving them at the very edge of destruction. In the alien fleet's command center, fear replaced arrogance. The commanders realized they had made a terrible mistake. They had seen humans fighting among themselves and assumed weakness. They had seen humans struggle and assumed they were easy prey. They had never thought to ask what humanity might have hidden in its deepest shadows. Now, as their ships burned and their warriors fell one after another, they understood too late. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not defenseless. Humanity had simply been waiting. With the dreadnoughts awake, Earth was no longer a prize to be taken, but a fortress too dangerous to challenge. Across the galaxy, other civilizations watched in stunned silence as news spread like wildfire. Powerful empires that had once laughed at Earth's backwardness now reconsidered their plans. Traders, smugglers, and spies who had thought to profit from Earth's downfall now thought only of escape. In the dark council chambers of distant worlds, ancient rulers whispered the name of Earth with new respect and fear. They realized that somewhere, hidden deep within the human spirit, was a power unlike anything else in the galaxy. It was not just their machines. It was their will to survive, their refusal to be conquered, and their silent, burning defiance that made them dangerous beyond all measure. The dreadnoughts, having shattered the enemy fleet, did not pursue the survivors. They formed a silent wall around Earth, a shield of iron and fire that no enemy could pass. They did not boast, they did not threaten, they simply waited, watching, ready to unleash their fury again if needed. To the people of Earth, they were both terrifying and beautiful, symbols of a forgotten strength that still lived within them. To the galaxy beyond, they were a warning carved into the stars. Humanity was not to be taken lightly. The silent awakening of Earth's guardians had changed everything. The galaxy would never be the same. The silence after the awakening was short-lived, for the enemy was not yet defeated, only wounded and furious. High above Earth, beyond the wreckage of their shattered fleet, the alien commanders gathered their surviving warships into a desperate formation. The dreadnoughts had broken their first attack like waves crashing against a wall, but now they planned something far more dangerous, a direct assault meant to crush the sleeping giants before they could fully remember their true strength. Within minutes, they could overwhelm the dreadnoughts before Earth could organize. They believed that even now, humanity's ancient machines were slow, vulnerable, unprepared. They believed wrong. As the alien fleet roared towards Earth, leaving behind trails of deadly light, the dreadnoughts did not move to meet them. They floated in a grim, silent line above the planet, their guns cold, their engines idle, as if daring the enemy to come closer. And the enemy, blinded by anger and fear, accepted the silent challenge. When the alien ships entered firing range, the first clash began. Without a single warning shot, without a declaration of war, the dreadnoughts came to life. In an instant, their massive guns turned towards the enemy, their targeting systems locking onto hundreds of fast-moving targets at once. The first volley was like the eruption of 1,000 volcanoes. From the bellies and spines of the human ships, Beams of energy and storms of projectiles blasted outward, tearing through the enemy fleet with terrifying accuracy. Alien bombers exploded into clouds of fire. Cruisers split apart in midair, and swarmers, so small and agile against other enemies, found themselves caught in invisible webs of destruction, vaporized before they could even react. The sky above Earth became a battlefield of fire and broken dreams. But the aliens were not cowards. Even as their comrades fell, they pressed forward, their own weapons lighting up the darkness. Beams of green, red, and blue energy stabbed towards the dreadnoughts, some striking true, others glancing off thick armor plates. The ancient human ships shook under the assault, some taking heavy damage, their armor glowing with the heat of countless impacts. Yet they did not falter. Damage control systems, built to endure worse than this, sprang into action. Automated repair drones swarmed over wounded sections, sealing breaches, reinforcing shields, restoring power to damaged guns. From within the armored hearts of the dreadnoughts, ancient artificial intelligences awoke, cold and logical, directing repairs and counterattacks with the precision of master generals. They had no fear, no anger, only a single purpose: protect Earth at all costs. The battle raged fiercely. Alien fighters weaved and twisted around the dreadnoughts, launching missiles, planting mines, searching for weaknesses. They found some. One dreadnought, its side torn open by a concentrated attack, shuddered and began to drift, its guns falling silent. The aliens cheered, thinking they had their first victory. But then, with a groan of tortured metal, the dreadnought reawakened. From its wounded side, a massive cannon extended, glowing bright with energy. In a single, deafening shot, it vaporized the alien flagship, sending shockwaves through the enemy fleet and crushing their hopes of an easy victory. The dreadnoughts fought like beasts from humanity's oldest nightmares, each one an unstoppable fortress in motion. Down on Earth, humanity watched with bated breath. All across the world, in crowded cities and remote villages, on military bases and isolated farms, people stood together, their eyes lifted to the heavens. They knew they could do nothing but watch, hope, and remember that these mighty ships were born from their ancestors' dreams and fears. Every explosion above, every falling wreck, every shining dreadnought standing firm against the darkness reminded them of who they were: survivors, fighters, builders of wonders. Even the galaxy could not easily defeat. As the battle dragged on, the alien commanders grew desperate. Their losses were heavy, and their ships were running low on ammunition and power. They had underestimated humanity once again. These were not relics. They were weapons of a level far beyond anything the aliens had imagined. In a final act of desperation, the aliens launched their superweapon, a ship-sized bomb wrapped in layers of stealth and armor, designed to slip past defenses and detonate with the force of a small star. It raced towards the dreadnought line. For a moment, it seemed unstoppable. But the dreadnoughts were not blind. Long ago, their builders had prepared for every possibility. Sensors hidden deep within the ships picked up the strange energy signature. Instantly, commands were issued. One dreadnought, an older model marked with the scars of forgotten wars, broke formation and moved to intercept. It accelerated faster than anything its size had a right to do, engines roaring so loudly that the very air trembled. It collided with the superweapon head-on, sacrificing itself in a brilliant explosion that lit up the heavens like a second sun. The shockwave tore through the battlefield, disabling ships on both sides, but the line held. Earth was saved. The cost was heavy. Several dreadnoughts floated silent and lifeless now, drifting among the wreckage of the enemy fleet. But the alien invasion was broken. Survivors fled in every direction, their once proud fleet reduced to smoking ruins and shattered hopes. The dreadnoughts, battered but victorious, remained. They had been called into battle for the first time in centuries, and they had proven that even against the darkness of the unknown, humanity could stand and fight. In the days that followed, as the fires of battle cooled and the wounded ships began slow repairs, a new understanding spread across Earth. They were not weak, not alone, and not forgotten. In the deep past, Their ancestors had trusted them with a legacy of strength and defiance, a shield against the worst the galaxy could offer. Now that shield had been tested and had not broken. And across the stars, in places far beyond human eyes, new powers watched with a growing respect and fear. They whispered of Earth, of its silent giants, and of the people who had awakened them. They understood that something had changed, something that could not be undone. Humanity had entered the stage of the galaxy not as helpless prey, but as a force to be reckoned with. And the dreadnoughts, still floating silently above their home, watched and waited, ready for whatever would come next. Across the distant corners of the galaxy, where human eyes had never yet wandered, the news of the battle spread like wildfire, faster than light, faster than reason. In glittering halls of ancient empires, on frozen worlds ruled by silent machines, in the drifting cities of traitor clans, everywhere the same whisper was heard: Earth had awakened its dreadnoughts. At first, there was disbelief. How could a species so young, so isolated, possess weapons that rivaled the oldest powers of the stars? How could a backwater world, one that many considered unworthy of conquest, field warships that could annihilate a seasoned invasion fleet? But disbelief quickly gave way to fear, and fear took root deep in the hearts of those who once thought themselves rulers of all they saw. The footage leaked first among the mercenary bands, those lawless fighters who sold their strength to the highest bidder. Shaky recordings of the clash showed dreadnoughts moving like living mountains, their guns tearing through alien cruisers as easily as tearing paper. Entire battalions of seasoned warriors, who had fought in countless wars across the stars, sat in stunned silence as they watched, the glow of burning ships reflected in their wide, fearful eyes. They saw how the human ships did not merely defend, they dominated, crushing the enemy with a ruthless precision that spoke of long-forgotten wars, wars fought in the ancient darkness before memory itself. In the hidden chambers of powerful alien councils, panic gripped the mighty. Species that had ruled for millennia, species that had enslaved worlds and exterminated rivals, suddenly found themselves speaking in hushed tones, careful not to betray their own rising terror. The humans had been misjudged. Earth had been seen as a ripe fruit, ready for plucking. Now, it seemed more like a hornet's nest, a hidden fortress guarded by monsters from the ancient past. Advisors scrambled to rewrite reports, to spin new strategies, to propose alliances or treaties, but beneath every polished word, there was the same unspoken truth: humanity could no longer be ignored, and worse, it could not be easily defeated. Whispers became rumors, and rumors became legends. In the farthest reaches of the galaxy, smugglers spoke of entire fleets vaporized in minutes, of ghost ships the size of mountains prowling the skies of Earth, of weapons so powerful that even the laws of physics seemed to bend before them. Some claimed that the dreadnoughts were not machines, but living beings, ancient guardians who had slept beneath the earth and sea, waiting for the time to rise again. Others insisted that humanity had made a deal with something far older and darker, trading innocence for strength in a bargain that could not be undone. Fear spread not only among the rulers and the warriors, but among the common folk too. Merchants who once dreamed of trading freely with Earth now hesitated, fearing the wrath of an awakened giant. Explorers who had mapped the stars for centuries began to redraw their maps, placing vast empty spaces around Earth's solar system, marking it not with the symbols of commerce or diplomacy, but with warnings: enter at your own risk. Even pirates and raiders who lived without fear began to avoid the blue planet, speaking of cursed fleets and ghostly warnings that echoed from the wreckage of those who dared approach. In hidden places, darker councils met. Warlords and secret rulers, those who built their power on lies and conquest, saw the threat clearly. They spoke of preemptive strikes, of gathering their forces for a second, greater assault before Earth grew stronger. Yet none among them could agree. Fear divided them. Some wanted war, others wanted peace, and still others wanted to flee to the edges of the galaxy, away from the reach of the dreadnought's terrible gaze. On Earth itself, humanity stood united like never before. Where once there had been division and fear, now there was pride and purpose. The people knew they had awakened something powerful, something that made the galaxy tremble. Yet they also knew that with power came danger. More enemies would come. Some would seek to destroy them, others to enslave them, still others to steal the secrets of the dreadnoughts for their own dark purposes. Humanity prepared. Scientists and engineers, soldiers and leaders, all worked together, repairing the wounded dreadnoughts, learning from their ancient systems, awakening more sleeping guardians hidden in secret places. Training programs grew larger. Spaceports expanded. Fleets were built. And above it all, the dreadnoughts floated silently, grim reminders that Earth would never be defenseless again. Far away, in the cold darkness between the stars, a different kind of fear took hold. Beings older than empires, entities that had watched the rise and fall of countless civilizations, stirred from their slumber. They had seen such awakenings before, and they knew the signs. Once, long ago, other species had awakened their ancient strengths, only to burn brightly for a moment before being crushed by the jealous and the fearful. Would humanity suffer the same fate, or would they defy history? None could say. But all agreed on one thing: Earth was no longer a quiet corner of the galaxy. It had become a storm, a force that could not be ignored or easily contained. Plans were made in secret places, plots whispered in languages older than light. But always, there was the same terrible, growing realization: the galaxy had misjudged humanity, and it might already be too late to stop what was coming. As the fear spread, as alliances crumbled and new ones were desperately forged, Earth remained strangely calm. The leaders of humanity knew that their greatest strength was not their ships or their weapons, but their unity, their stubborn refusal to bow before any threat. They had survived their own wars, their own near destructions, and they had emerged stronger. Now, facing the fear of 1,000 worlds, they stood ready, not as conquerors, but as defenders, guardians of their home and their future. The dreadnoughts waited, their guns silent for now, but ready to roar again if needed. Above the cities and the mountains, the seas and the deserts, they kept watch, their ancient eyes scanning the skies. Humanity had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy had never seen a silence like this before, a silence not born from peace but from fear, from the careful, trembling breath of civilizations unsure of their future. After the rise of Earth's dreadnoughts, after the shocking defeat of fleets that had once thought themselves unstoppable, everything changed. Where once alien empires moved boldly across the stars, now they hesitated, watching Earth with a mix of terror and fascination. The powerful councils that had once divided the galaxy into neat territories and easy alliances now found themselves irrelevant, their ancient rules crumbling before their very eyes. Humanity had not sought to rule, but their very survival had rewritten the laws of power. A new order was rising, and it began not with grand speeches or bloody invasions, but with a single undeniable truth: Earth could not be conquered. On secret channels and hidden broadcasts, new maps began to appear, maps where Earth was no longer a tiny dot on the edge of civilized space, but a burning sun around which everything else now turned. Diplomats who once dismissed humanity now begged for meetings, offering treaties filled with promises of peace, trade, and friendship. Yet humanity was not quick to trust. They had seen how easily the galaxy had turned against them, how ready others had been to crush them when they thought Earth was defenseless. Every offer was studied carefully, every handshake viewed with suspicion, because humans had learned the hard way that survival in the stars demanded not just strength, but wisdom. Above Earth, the dreadnoughts stood as silent judges, their massive forms casting long shadows across the stars. They were more than ships now. They were symbols, warnings carved into the very fabric of space. New dreadnoughts, freshly awakened from hidden vaults deep beneath the oceans and mountains, joined their brothers, each one more powerful, more terrifying than the last. Humanity's engineers worked day and night, studying the ancient technologies, adapting them, improving them, creating weapons and defenses the galaxy had never dreamed possible. But humans did not forget the lessons of history. They knew that raw power alone would not protect them forever. They needed alliances, real ones, built not on fear, but on shared goals. Quietly, carefully, Humanity reached out to those few species who had not turned against them, those who had offered help when Earth's doom had seemed certain. New pacts were made, alliances forged in trust and shared hope rather than greed. Small, brave species who had long lived under the thumb of mighty empires now found in humanity a protector, a fierce, unyielding guardian who asked for no tribute and demanded no surrender. It was not conquest, it was inspiration. Across the stars, voices rose in defiance of the old powers, whispers turning into songs of rebellion. The old rulers, the ancient empires built on slavery and fear, watched in horror as their influence crumbled. Their soldiers, once loyal and proud, began to question their orders. Their citizens, long oppressed, began to dream of freedom. They saw Earth's stubborn stand against impossible odds, and they believed that maybe, just maybe, they too could fight for something better. Skirmishes erupted on distant worlds, small uprisings sparked by a single word: humanity. But the old powers did not fall quietly. Secretly, they gathered their forces, building terrible weapons, forging dark alliances, preparing to strike once more, not against Earth alone, but against the very idea of Earth, the idea that the weak could defy the strong. They plotted assassinations, sabotage, and wars designed not to destroy humanity's fleet, but to poison its spirit, to turn its allies against it. Yet humanity, too, was not idle. Earth's leaders understood that the real battle was not for territory or resources, but for hearts and minds. They sent ambassadors, not warriors, to the farthest colonies, offering help, sharing knowledge, proving through action that Earth's strength was not a threat, but a promise that no one would be left alone to face the darkness. In vast floating cities above gas giants, in dusty trading posts on barren moons, in hidden rebel camps on forgotten worlds, the message spread: humanity stands with those who seek freedom. And so the galaxy changed, not with the roar of cannons, but with the quiet, relentless spread of hope. New trade routes opened, new alliances formed, and everywhere, the old order weakened. But the danger was far from over. The old powers, desperate and cornered, unleashed their final plans. Superweapons built in secret laboratories, assassins trained from birth, fleets of ghost ships controlled by AI minds twisted by hatred, all these were hurled at Earth and its allies in one last, desperate bid to restore the old ways. Battles raged across the stars, brutal and merciless. Worlds burned, alliances shattered, and for a time it seemed the darkness might win. But humanity had something the old powers could never understand: resilience. Where others broke, humans endured. Where others fled, humans stood their ground. Every loss made them fight harder. Every betrayal sharpened their resolve. And they were not alone. Their allies, inspired by Earth's example, fought with a fury the galaxy had never seen. Small, fragile species, who had once known only submission, now struck back with cleverness and courage, using every tool, every trick they had learned to outwit and outfight their former masters. Together, they pushed back the darkness, inch by bloody inch. It was not easy. It was not quick. But slowly, the tide turned. One by one, the old empires fell, their rulers captured or exiled, their slaves freed. On every liberated world, the dreadnoughts loomed overhead, not as conquerors but as protectors, their presence a silent vow that tyranny would not return. In the aftermath, humanity helped rebuild, not as overlords, but as partners. They shared technology, trained new defenders, and made sure that no world would stand alone again. In every corner of the galaxy, new governments rose, built on cooperation, on mutual respect, on the simple idea that strength was meant to protect, not to dominate. The new order did not have a name, not at first. It was not an empire, nor a federation, nor an alliance in the traditional sense. It was something new, something the galaxy had never seen before: a loose brotherhood of worlds, bound not by force, but by a shared promise to stand together against fear, to protect each other's freedom, to never again allow the strong to prey on the weak. And at the center of it all stood Earth, no longer a forgotten world on the edge of nowhere, but a shining beacon in the darkness, a reminder that even the smallest spark could ignite a fire that would change everything. The dreadnoughts, battered but unbeaten, drifted silently among the stars, their massive hulls bearing the scars of countless battles, their guns quiet but ever watchful. Humanity knew that peace was fragile, that new threats would one day rise. But they also knew that they were ready. A new order had begun, and this time it would be built not on fear, but on hope, on unity, and on the unbreakable will of those who refused to be broken.